Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Auction for the Soul. This week's Parashat is Perashat Shelah. Okay, so much to discuss. I just want to highlight a couple of themes over here. We know that the Jewish people, last week's Parashat, make the mistake of rejecting the man, the spiritual food that they were, the spiritual diet that they were on. And now Moshe trying to kind of like move beyond the mistakes of the Jewish people. He just is interested in one thing. He just wants to get these people home. So much of the struggle that we have today with the land of Israel, you see that there's a struggle for Jews always throughout history of maintaining the special land and trying to grab hold of it. And therefore, what I want to do is I want to highlight like one small theme that I think is buried in the parsha itself that will hopefully give us a deeper insight as to what they did wrong and maybe things that you and I can take from the lessons that they were unable to incorporate into their lives and become bigger, greater human beings as a result of learning from their mistakes. The parsha begins as follows. It says, "V'yidaber shel Moshe le'emor, Shelach lecha anashim." I want you, Moshe, to send for yourself anashim v'yoturu et haaretz Canaan. I want you to go ahead and send out these spies to v'yoturu et haaretz Canaan. Literally, the word v'yaturu means to not spy, but to check out. I want you to go ahead and get a tour of the land of Canaan. Asher ani noten levnei Yisrael, that I'm going to give to the Jewish people. Ish echad lemateh, each one according to the mateh, their tribe, avotav, their fathers, zechlu kol nasi bahem. You send out your nisiim, send out these 12 nisiim, the head leaders of each tribe, and you will go ahead and have them look out at the land. Okay, nothing here that's so terrifying. It says v'yishlach otam Moshe. Moshe sends them. Okay, he sends them out. So you have then the lists of all the names of these tribe members, each one from each tribe. 12 tribes. The Mekubalim point out that each one of these tribe members took on the personification of one of the Shvatim themselves. So like whoever was the leader of Shevet Shimon, El Shemotam, it says Reuven, Shamua ben Zakur. So Shemua, the son of Zakur, he embodied Shevet Reuven. He embodied Reuven's neshama himself. Shimon, right? Shafat ben Huri. These were not just random people that went out to spy. These were individuals that took on the personification of the Shvatim themselves. Okay, and I just want to kind of like jump ahead a little bit and like highlight the pieces that I think are the most relevant to everyone here today. Okay, so they go into the land of Israel. And we know that this should have been like a longer journey, and there's something called Kfitzot HaDerech. God makes it super fast. They come, they go, they check everything out, and they get a complete view of the land of Israel. Moshe, even Midrash points out, tells them, whatever you do, come back with a positive report. This is going to be the tikkun for the Bnei Israel. This is going to be the thing that fixes everything that the Jewish people got wrong. You come back, motivate these people to come back into the land of Israel, and we're going to fix everything that was wrong up until now. Okay. Amazing. So they go out, they come back with their report. Okay, and we know how and what that report sounds like. Okay, Pasuk continues at the end of the Perek Yud Gimel, the 13th Perek, and it reads as follows. It says, "V'sapru v'yelchu v'yavo Moshe Aaron." They went out and they came back and they told Moses and Aaron everything that they saw. Okay, great. And they came and they said to them, where is it? Here we go. Ba'anu el haaretz asher shlachtana. We came to the land that you sent us to. V'gam zavad chalav udvash hi v'zeh piriyah. This place, we came to this land, is flowing with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Right? Look how big these fruits are. Efes ki az ha'am yoshev b'aretz ha'arim. However, the people who inhabit the land, right, they are mighty. B'tzurot gdolot ma'od v'gam yadei ha'anak re'inu sham. They have very extremely fortified cities, and they saw even the offspring. Yadei ha'anak re'inu sham. We saw the offspring of these massive giants. Amalek yoshe ba'aretz. And you have the Amalekites. Remember those guys? They tried to come out and fight us, and we won that war also. And you have in the southern lands, you have over there in the southern lands, which we're still fighting today, right? You have the Chiti, Yevusi, Amori, Yoshe Bahar Kanani, Yoshe Al-Yam, Al-Yad HaYarden. You have the Amorites, the Hittites, the Jebusites, and they all dwell in this mountainous region. The Canaanites dwell on the coast alongside the Jordan. This place is inhabited. It's not going to be easy. V'yahas Kalev et ha'am el Moshe. Kalev, he's one of the 12 of the Rashi Nisim, 12 head of the tribes, Kalev ben Yefunah and Yoshua ben Nun. Kalev speaks up and he says, V'yomer ala na'aleh. Right? We are going to go up. V'yershu ota ki yachol nuchala. We're going to go up and take possession of it because we can go ahead and overcome these challenges. Don't worry about it. But the anashim, asher alu imo, however, the individuals that went up with him, amru, they said, lo nuchala alot el ha'am. We cannot go up and overcome these people. Ki chazaku mimenu, because they are stronger than us. V'yotziu dibat ha'aretz. And they came and they spoke about this evil report on the land, asher taru ota, which they had taru, scouted, toured, however you understand that word, okay? They toured the land, they came back and they were supposed to just tour, not to spy out the land, not to come back about the military, anything. Just give me a detailed information about what the land was like is what Moshe wanted, okay? Okay, so then Pasuk continues, he says, the land eats its inhabitants. And all the people they saw, they were men of stature. There we saw the Nephilim, these magical people, Bnei Anak, the children of giants, men of Nephilim, from the Nephilim. We were like grasshoppers, and so we were in their eyes. Famous Pasuk. Okay, and that is how that chapter ends. Okay, the next chapter for Tisa Koladat, they start crying, they're screaming out, oh my God, what had happened? How did we go? We left Egypt, we left all these things behind. We're doomed, we're doomed, we're doomed, we're doomed. Doom and gloom, doom and gloom. So how do we understand all of this? Let's go back for a second. So, number one, what does Kalev say? He says, Yahas Kalev kol ha'am ad Moshe, v'yomer ha'oleh na'aleh. Right? How do you go ahead and face giants? Right? How do you overcome the bully? Now, I don't know about you, but I had bullying experiences as a kid. There was one kid, I remember him very clearly. He was in fifth grade actually. The guy was a giant. He must have had a growth spurt. He was like double my size, not only in height, but in width also. One of these big guys. And when you see a big guy like that, you're naturally intimidated as a kid. But I realized something interesting as a kid. This is like my own psychological insight. That the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And that if you start allowing the fear of someone else's size to get in the way of your ability to try to push back, you won't do anything. And therefore, what I did was I confronted my fears. This bully would often just stand in front of me and he was just like towering, and I would just push him back and run away because I was much faster than him. And I realized then that the more and more I pushed this guy around, who was double my size, the more and more I would shift his dominating stature over me into one of fear of me instead. Like I was no longer afraid of him. He was afraid of me because I could hit him and run away. Okay? And I think this is exactly what Kalev is saying. Of course, B'derech HaTeva, you and I cannot go ahead. In natural means, we cannot go ahead and overcome the giants of Canaan. Right? But he says, Vayomer, no. The attitude, how do you face giants? You say, Ale na'ale. We are going to go up, Yirashnu oto. Right? B'shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach. The way we win wars is not thinking about the impossibility of the situation that we find ourselves in, but rather the way you and I win our wars is by recognizing it's all from Hashem. We're going to go up. The only way to do this is just to go and fight. Because if we have that attitude, certainly you and I are going to go ahead and have the ability of overcoming. You can't win something that you're afraid of. You can't overcome something that you are stuck in, that you believe that is impossible. It just doesn't work that way, guys. We just saw it. We saw the splitting of the sea. We saw the 10 miracles of Mitzrayim. We saw all these amazing things. You can't give up hope. Keep pushing, never give up. No retreat, no surrender. Rashi points out, he says, Vayahas. He says, Lashon Shtika. Right? He says that the word Vayahas over here means, so it comes from the word, the Lashon of Shtika, Has Kol Basar. Okay? Has Ki Lo Hiski, these different psukim, that shows you that they were all silent. He silenced them. He says, Kein derech b'nei adam harotze l'shatek agudat anashim omer shatit. Right? You have this idea that they were quiet, they kept quiet, amazing. Okay, so these Jews, they came out, they were silenced by Caleb's plea to them, saying, hey guys, whatever you do, don't give up, don't give up, don't give in. Let's figure out a way of moving forward and building this into something more. But unfortunately, that is not what happens over here. Okay, so Pasuk says that v'nihihi, and they were like grasshoppers in their eyes. Okay, this is their mistake. The mistake that they made was that they allowed their own self-image to get in the way of their own ability. They created their own psychological stumbling blocks. You can't face off a giant if you think the circumstances are impossible. You're going to surrender right away, right? So what happens? He ends up having a different way of thinking about the situation that you and I are in, right? Caleb says that ultimately the way in which you and I can overcome anything is by having emunah. And therefore the chet of the Meraglim itself was one of not having the ability to fight the giants because there was no emunah. The only way you and I have the ability of accomplishing anything in this world is by recognizing that it's all from Borei Olam, it's from God. When you lose that, you become someone who is lost in nature. And I believe this is exactly why Moshe doesn't turn them to Meraglim. He says, I want you to go out, I want you to tour the land. V'yutura ta'aretz. You're not going in as spies, but rather you're going in as individuals to come back and just give me a topography, give me the lay of the land, come back with your report. Don't tell me about whether or not you and I could overcome these things. We can't overcome these things by nature. By nature, you and I should have never left Mitzrayim. You and I should have never crossed the Yam Suf. By nature, my friends, you and I should not be here right now having this conversation. It makes no sense. The situation that Israel finds itself right now makes absolutely no sense. There's right now some, buzzing happening in the north. Okay? The whole thing makes no sense. It's impossible, b'derech teva, but you and I are not tevadik people. You and I are not people that are bound by nature. Pasuk says, one of the ways that the tikkun of the Pasukim, it says later on when we get tzitzit. And the commandment says, when it says, v'yalachem tzitzit, uritem oto, when you see the tzitzit, he says, lo taturu achrei levavchem, va'achrei einechem. Don't go after your heart and your eyes. This is a weird pasuk. Shouldn't the pasuk have said, lo taturu achrei einechem, va'achrei levavchem? Don't your eyes first see, then your heart feels? But all too often, you and I become individuals that are motivated by our hearts and not our eyes. We allow our hearts to go ahead and determine what we see. The Sfat Emet says over here, he says, don't be influenced how you perceive things, because God sees things differently. You think there's no way out, but Hashem always has a solution, right? He always has a solution. Re natati beinechem atem roim, ani omer lechem mo'omed u'mshmu'ah. Rashi points out over here, with your own eyes, do you see this? I do not tell you this by conjecture or hearsay. I'm telling you the reality, that the only way to go ahead and do this, Barushu, come to conquer the land, the only way this is going to happen is what? Have emunah. Rashi says over here, Ein me'arer b'davar ve'einechem tzurchim le'milchama. There's no one who's going to contest the matter. You will not need to wage war, right? You don't need to send out spies. But had these Meraglim, had these Shiftei Ha'am, heads of the nation, won out and they trusted in God's promise, they would need no weapons of war. You need weapons of war because you're lacking emunah. Me'ayin yavo Ezri. David says, from where? Where does our help come from? Ezri me'im Hashem. My help comes from Hashem, Oseh Shamayim va'aretz. My help comes from the Almighty One above. That is where my help comes from. There is nothing else. Right? Later on, it says, Ani Hashem dibarti im lo zot eseh kol edahara zot hanodim alai. Hashem said, this is what I'm going to do all the wicked people, band them together, those that banded against me. We're going to put them in this Bamidbar Hazeh Yit'amu V'sham Yimotu. I'm going to put them in this wilderness, in this midbar, and they will die and be finished off. But the Khatam Sofer points out the word Yitamu over here doesn't mean die. He says the word Yitamu comes from the word Timimut. He says, I'm going to put them, they're going to remain in the midbar, in this desert, until Yitamu, they get back their Timimut, their trust in God. That is what was lacking. That was what was lacking here completely. Their inability to go ahead and have their complete faith in God. Where does that strength come from? That inner strength that comes from our beliefs and how we perceive things. Now, there's a fascinating idea. There's actually an old machloket about how we perceive things. Right? There's a debate at how things are perceived. There's two major theories. One theory goes like this: that in order for us to see something, the light from the object has to come towards us. That means all we see is light bouncing off the object, and that's what you're saying. You're looking at this, you're seeing the light bouncing off the object, the camera's catching it, you're seeing me, and so on and so forth. That's one problem. That's one idea of how you and I perceive things. But there's another possibility, and that is our eyes emit a light of vision, which goes out to meet the objects, and therefore there's something about my eyes pushing out light, right? So the question is whether the trajectory of sight is from the object, right, that you and I are seeing, that would be me, to the subject, or from the subject to the object. Which way is the light coming from? Is it coming from the thing that is bouncing off the light, or from you, right, that is observing the thing itself? Fascinating machloket, debate in philosophy and science as to which way it goes. But we know with empirical evidence that today, images are they're received in your brain. You look at a word on this. You're looking at this video. Okay, there are rays of light that pass from the screen that you're looking at to your eyes. Okay, and then your brain goes ahead and registers these images. Okay, and it turns into the information that you're seeing right now. Okay, that is how you're able to see these things, but this is still not 100%, right? How do we see the video right now, right? How does that actually happen? If you think about it, meaning you're seeing the video on the screen, right? But that's really happening where? In your mind. Your eye isn't really seeing anything. Your mind is seeing the video on the screen a few feet away from you, right? It's only a projection of the image. And then your brain is making it look like it's happening outside of you, but in reality, everything you're seeing on the screen is happening inside of you. Do you understand that? Meaning, when you're looking at this video, you're watching this, it's really happening in your mind, right? Your mind is interpreting the information in front of you, okay? And it is happening inside your head. You can look away, but when you look at the screen, the reason why you're seeing this is because your brain is processing it and putting it there. It's not happening in your eye, it's happening in here, okay? Therefore, in a sense, while the light is received by our eyes, okay, by the nervous system, we could also argue that we project or that we emit a light of vision outward because it's happening in our mind. Our minds extend to the outside world, and therefore it is absorbing the information and bringing it in. Does that make any sense? Okay, so let's try to take the idea a little bit further, okay? In basic quantum theory, okay, in which the observer can affect the that which is being observed, right? We know that, like that's a double slit experiment and so on and so forth. Now, did you ever have that feeling that like you're sitting in a room and someone's looking at you, someone's staring at you, and you have no idea, like you just look at that weird, where does that come from, right? That is, the power of sight, okay? And there's this deep teaching in the Kabbalah, right, that the viewer affects what is being seen. Okay, there's a positive energy when you're looking at something, and the opposite is true as well. When you give something negative, you're bringing negative energy to those things. Okay, so when these 12 spies went out to spy the land, okay, they failed in how they were observing these things. Lo toturu achrei levavchem va'achrei einechem. Don't go after your heart. Your preconceived notion changes the way you observe, and this is why they said, and then when we saw the giants and we were in our eyes, they were like grasshoppers, right? They saw us as grasshoppers. They had no real knowing how they were going to be perceived in the eyes of these giants or these inhabitants. But since their own view, in their own unique way of seeing their own reality, they missed out, right? They created a whole persona, a perception in their own mind, right, of how they saw their existence, and that completely perverted everything. They were still living in a poor man's, a slave man mentality. They couldn't shed that slave man mentality. And therefore, the Parsha is here to remind you, my friends, that so much of our reality, our mitzvot, is an expression of how you and I perceive ourselves. Okay, I ended the story. I said the story for the ladies on Tuesday, but it's worth repeating over here in the Parsha class. There was a Chassid who just didn't get much attention, and he's walking around, and his wife doesn't say much to him. He's outside, no one asks him for anything. The children don't ask him for anything, and he doesn't get much attention. So one day, he's walking around. He decides he's going to get himself a new hat. He finds a nicest hat, a hat with a nice feather on it. He puts on this hat. It's amazing. He leaves the old hat in the store and walks out. Walking down the street, automatically, these kids say, "Hey, sir, can you help me cross the street? How do I get from here to there?" All this attention. And then all of a sudden, he gets home, and his wife's like, "Hi, how are you today? How's it going?" And the guy's like, "Holy cow, it works." And he ends up, his wife's like, "What's wrong?" And he starts pointing to his hat. And she's like, "What?" He's like, "Don't you notice?" She's like, "Notice what?" She's like, "My new hat." She's like, "What are you talking about? That's the same exact hat you wore every single day." He takes off the hat and he realizes that he left the new hat in the store and accidentally put the old hat back on. What changed? His perception of himself changed. The chitzoniyut doesn't change our reality. The externalities doesn't change our reality. The pnimiyut, the inner things happening in our mind, it changes everything. I can't be spiritual. It's too religious, too difficult, too many stumbling blocks. Rabbi, I can't. My friends, nonsense. That is the chet of the meraglim. The chet of the meraglim is that they did not believe that they could accomplish it. You can't. You will miss 100% of the shots you don't take, as they say. Right? And therefore, the Parsha is a reminder that anything is possible. Na'aseh v'natzliach. Do it and you will be matzliach. Stop giving in to these ridiculous feelings of hopelessness and start recognizing that the way you and I, as Jews, have overcome all things that we have faced is by believing in the impossible. The impossible comes from the word, I am possible. Wishing you a Shabbat Shalom Mavarach. Never stop believing. Don't stop believing. Keep trying. Keep pushing. Bezrat Hashem, we will see Yeshuot soon. Have an amazing Shabbat, everybody. Thank you so much for listening.